Oof! What an episode of the Ranveer show this one is. By far, I think my most intellectual episode, the most analytical episode, possibly one of the deepest conversations I've ever had in my life, but we recorded it for this podcast. Mr. Ronnie Screwvala. He's one of the most respected entrepreneurs in India today. He's created businesses in everything from the toothbrush industry to the cable TV industry to UTV, of course. That's the one he's known for the most. But right now, he's around about 57 or 58 years old and he's getting into the world of education. He's kind of getting his hands dirty in the world of entrepreneurship again. He's launched something called UpGrad, which intends on, over time, revolutionizing the Indian education system, the way people learn. He intends on spreading knowledge. He intends on spreading inspiration. And that's pretty much what we did in today's episode as well. Trust me, if you're someone who knows who Ronnie Screwvala is, you wouldn't have seen an interview like this one. And if you're someone who doesn't know who Ronnie Screwvala is, get ready to absolutely change up your world. This man's mind is an ocean of knowledge, years of experience. And you know what? His story also began with him rebelling against his parents. Just like most of us, he had to fight in order to become an entrepreneur. He had to convince his parents that entrepreneurship is the way to go. He's someone who's self-taught. He's not done an MBA. He's figured out this world himself by working on his communication skills, his business knowledge, and human psychology. That's what this episode's about. So if you want to do business in your life, or if you just want to expand the boundaries of your mind, Ronnie Screwvala on the Ranveer show is going to be that go-to episode for you. I promise you, you're going to watch this one multiple times. But also keep in mind, all the timestamps are given down below. And of course, we started a new channel. It's called the Ranveer Show Clips. So if you just want clips of this episode, it's going to be up on that channel soon. But for now, Ronnie Screwvala on the Ranveer show. What's good, everybody? Welcome to the Ranveer show. When I was drafting out the show, there was like 5 people I'd listed out as dream guests, and we've got one of them today. So check. We're talking to Mr. Ronnie Screwvala.
And I would say dream with your eyes open.
For sure. I'm going to pick your brains during this conversation.
Okay.
My first question to you is that whenever I'm in a meeting room that's full of a lot of big businessmen or people who are accomplished, they always talk about you as the big R.
The big R.
Yeah, the big R.
Okay.
Like, why do you think that is? Why do
I
you
haven't a
think
clue. Firstly, I don't know why you're wasting time talking to accomplished people in the first place.
to learn from them
Yeah.
and to get them on the Ranveer
And
show?
and then the definition of accomplished is different for different people, I think. But I have no idea why. If anything else, the big screw might be more appropriate than the big R, right?
Why do you say that?
Because that's a surname that's got me by and broken a lot of ice over a period of my life for a long period of time. I've had fun with my surname.
Have you had big screw ups in your life?
Tons of them.
Okay.
In all aspects. Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to touch upon all those aspects.
Yeah.
But my first question to you, sir, is how did you convince your parents that you wanted to be a businessman? Because I know that was an issue for you somewhere back in the day.
Yeah.
It's still an issue. I had to go through the same thing.
Sure.
That's part of the reason you're one of my top 5 guests, because I feel like I relate to you. On that level.
I think there's a lot to it, and it's a very important question, especially for people like in India. But I think parents are worried. And they're normally concerned. And I think that's what everyone goes through. And you went through in the 90s and you'll go through in 2020 and so on and so forth. And I think the more you can communicate with them, it solves the problem. Because at the end of the day, if they feel you're in control of a situation, yes, there's people who want to drag you in a particular direction. Of course, my parents wanted me to do my chartered accountancy. I was hell-bent on not doing it. But I think the conversations that I had with them constantly during this process of them being worried, I think helped. Okay. And I think today, if you were to introspect with people, to thaw, just communicate. Because actually, if they feel you're comfortable, they're going to be less and less worried.
So is your biggest piece of advice to that kid who's in that position right now, is it communicate with your parents and explain your business idea to them?
Yeah, and normally you feel, there's a generation gap. Will they really understand? They don't need to understand, but they just need to know. They need to know, and they'll see it in your eyes, they'll see it in your body language, they'll see it in your confidence level, they'll see into all your communication. And it can't be sorted out in one time, because the main point everyone feels is, now I said it once, I said it twice, I said it thrice, I'm not having this conversation again. It will take time. But if you really want that parental support at that young age, it's very important that you continue to go, and it'll thaw. It's a thawing process.
Right.
And because if you don't do that, we think we can do it without that ecosystem and support. But I think it's so much better when you have it.
Right, 100%, sir. So I want to tune you out from being 22 and tune you back into being your current age. I heard you say in an interview that 60 is the new 40.
Right.
Why do you say that?
Well, because you got to run much harder, you got to stay fit, you got to think young, you need to be surrounded by people who are thinking younger than you, and just the speed at which things are moving, that's pretty much it. And so to me, I'm being moderate, but I'm being 40 because really, I think when I'm working with almost everything that I'm doing here, I'm working with people half my age and I'm enjoying it. And I still see myself in that age group of them. I don't see myself as the elder in the room because if I see myself as the elder in the room, I won't pick it up.
Yeah. So for most young entrepreneurs, the motivation is either big money or big legacy. This is like a trend that I've seen. And I feel like you've kind of ticked both those boxes in your life. Where's this motivation coming from to run something like UpGrad at your age?
No, I think the motivation has to come from yourself. It's about, 3 years back or 4 years back, I decided to roll my sleeves up and start all over again from the startup. The very first co-founder, the very first team that we all built together, 4 of us coming together. It's the excitement. It's the excitement of the unknown. It's the excitement of doing something.
Yeah.
And different people look at things differently. I'm a doer. I like doing things. I like, and not just because I want to stay active.
Right.
And I think as you grow up, and since you said it, cut to my present age, there are a lot of things that I would not like to do. And I think I have the comfort to be able to be a little bit more picky of what are the things I don't want to do versus the things I want to do.
Right.
Not in terms of work, but just in terms of what I want to spend my time doing.
What do you not want to spend your time doing?
Well, I think when I definitely don't want to spend time transporting myself from home to a workplace more than 10 minutes. That was my first thing. I don't want to spend too much time with people and interacting and building such a large organization where 60% of my time is going to go with people interaction. I mean, much as I can have a conversation with you, I'm quite a recluse.
Okay. But so wait, isn't like running business all about working with people?
Yes. But I guess when you're at a certain stage in age, you can get somebody else who's going to do that while you work with a smaller group of people. And then those groups of people can work with a larger group of people.
That's my fighter pilot theory. I believe that first you've got to be a pilot, then you've got to be in the control room telling 4 pilots how to run planes.
Yeah, sure.
So let me get this straight. So you're trying to build something very big through 4 or 5 leaders that you've picked.
No, they're actually co-founders. And of course, they're leaders. Okay. And that's the beauty of it. I think in my second innings and what I'm starting off with, everything is about finding the right kind of partners, the right colleagues, the right like-minded people, and half my age.
Got it. In order to build massive big businesses and in order to build massive business careers, do you need to do an MBA in today's day and age?
Well, I'm the wrong guy or maybe the right guy to ask that, depending on who wants to ask that question. So if you ask me personally, it's a personal choice. My straight answer is no. And do I have any regrets from it? No. But it's a personal choice. It's about what you think you lacked at the time at which you thought you wanted to lack it. I think the good part today is that people are looking at that of an MBA or doing something at least 3 to 4 years after they've started working on their own or in a job. That's good because it gives you a very clear perspective of what you're lacking.
Right.
But I would say if you're doing something like an MBA, there's a 21st century MBA now. I think the context of an MBA and doing it for a purpose of a degree has gone way long back.
Right.
And you need to be very clear why you're doing it. You're definitely not doing it for a marriage certificate. And you're definitely not doing it only to get yourself a good job. So why are you doing it?
So you end up working with a lot of people who are spread across different industries. My question to you is, what do you see MBAs in the modern day have that non-MBAs don't?
Sometimes I'd say structure.
Okay.
I think it's 50, and I keep telling a lot of people here that right now for me, I'm doing more unlearning than I'm doing learning. And that's the best part of learning.
Okay.
And I know it sounds, and I want to dumb it down.
Is that because of social media?
No, it's just about how the world thinks, the consumer trends that are happening, what's the younger generation thinking, what everyone is thinking, plus what you're being taught versus what is the ground reality. How do you implement that? How do you deal with change, constant change, more often change all the time? So I think, even if you're doing an MBA, 50% after that, you have to unlearn. Right. And 50% you can learn.
Do they have any other advantages other than like structure?
No, I think it gives you some fundamentals. That's why I said it's very personal for people as to what they feel is lacking within themselves. Okay. I think maybe when I started off with that, my commercial acumen from I don't know where came about, and I could understand the basics of commerce and commercial and running a business. And I could feel logic and sensibility coming into what I wanted to do. And I think I've been very curious my whole life.
Yeah.
So this constant curiosity gets you to learn a lot more and keep your eyes and ears open.
Because you're a lifelong learner, other than UpGrad, what are your learning mechanisms? Like, do you talk to young people like myself?
I'm constantly interacting with people. So I think almost at least 3 to 4 times a month, I'm interacting with various people or giving a talk. And that's not, it's a selfish reason for me because I'm giving a talk, somebody's requested for it, but that 300, 400 people question and answer interactive session gives me a really good pulse.
Right.
I think in the various fields that I'm doing here, from the social philanthropy work to UpGrad, to storytelling with movies in RSVP, and to my sports endeavors. Actually, for a recluse, I'm getting so much of information and so much of touch points and so much of contact points that it's a constant learning process.
Got it. But do you also still read, despite so much of an inflow of information in your life?
Yeah. I do read. And I have to say, I've started reading more in the last 2 years than I've read in the last 20. For multiple reasons. I think because I force myself to have the discipline for that time, but it's always books or things that are outside of the purview of what I'm doing, because then it kind of, it's part of a distraction, it's part of understanding some of the other parts, and a huge influence from both my wife Zarina and my daughter Trisha, who are reading we've got a very large library at home, and it's 99.99% hers because she consumes 2 books, 3 books a week.
So if you're not reading about business, I want to know what you're reading about.
It's various things. I'm reading a book right now called The Fabulous. Okay, it's just about world leaders and the time we live in, and how it's just very few people with very strong agendas who are actually shaping everyone's lives. We think we're trying to shape people's lives, but those actual agendas are shaping people's lives. So just, from that to, monk and Buddhism,
Right.
It's varied.
Have you discovered spirituality in your life?
I have, to a certain extent, and that's a lot to do again with my wife and daughter, the only 2 real women that have all the impact in my life, because both of them done Vipassana, times and times again. I haven't had the guts to do it yet.
I feel it.
Yeah,
So.
I haven't had the guts to do it yet. And both of them actually in the last 6 to 7 years go to a philosophy school, and they spend almost 8 to 10 to, I'd say, 15 hours a week in their philosophy school. So it's not a school in philosophy, it's because it's all about seva, it's about participation, it's about everything else.
Right.
So it's Dolby sound as far as that goes.
Got it. Have you seen Sam Raimi's Spider-Man with Tobey Maguire's Peter Parker?
Yeah.
So, that was, I think, the first superhero movie I ever watched. And I felt like I always wanted to become a superhero.
Yeah.
But every superhero's got to have his MJ Watson, his Mary Jane, the girl.
Yeah.
So how much is your wife your MJ Watson in your career?
A lot.
Okay.
Actually, a lot. I think we've always worked together and yet been able to manage and keep that into a distance. And I think what we're doing today in our philanthropic activity in Swades just binds us together in a very different, it gives you a very rounded purpose in life.
Got it. So when someone talks to you, it's kind of a little bit imposing because I feel like you've got too much stuff under control. Like, I feel like you're too sorted out.
So what would you like me to do?
I want to know if you have low days. Like if you feel low on certain days about work. At the age you're at and after all the experience you've gained over the years, do you still have self-doubt? Do you still feel low?
Yeah, see, I think there are 2 different, and it's a good point that you raised. Self-doubt, I'm a little less on, I have to say. Low, I've realized that actually energy sapping is what I'm getting very conscious of, because I think all of us revitalize ourselves every night with positive energy. And everyone talks about work-life balance, but if you look at it, there's positive energy. And if you can bring that positive energy to work, you won't have a problem in work-life balance. So to me, it's not much about the low as much as when I feel low of energy. Right. And that's like a straight signal because I spend a lot of alone time between 6 and 8:39 in the morning. That's my real good time to spend to myself. Where at least take a walk for an hour.
Okay.
I read.
Okay.
Try and do 15 minutes of anapana, which is meditation.
Nice.
And 3 times a week I do yoga. So all the nice serious stuff, but actually very fun stuff. Because I'm taking a walk, but it just clears your mind in a very different manner.
Tony Robbins calls this priming, like where you get set for your working hours.
Yeah.
You need to take some time to just relax, think about yourself.
Yeah, I think those are my 3 working hours. The rest of the time are all my interruption hours.
I want to ask you about energy sapping and interruption.
Yeah.
You said that there are certain factors that take away your energy.
Yeah.
And you're a very high energy person. So
So sometimes you're having a conversation, people can sap a lot of energy from you, and that's something you need to feel very aware of that thought.
How early did you realize this? Like, at what age did you figure this? Early on?
Yeah, at an early stage, you kind of become aware, and then you figure out that how am I going to wheel myself away from that? And then you just either duck that issue. Now, see, when you're working with a lot of people and you're young, you don't have a choice sometimes. Many times you don't have a choice. Even today, I think in many cases, one doesn't have a choice. So when you don't have a choice, how do you deal with that is a different one. Because just walking away from something is not going to be the solution.
Yeah. And this could be your coworkers, your friends, extended family, things
Could be,
like
yeah.
that.
Could be anything. It could be situations sometimes. It could be whatever it is. Yeah. But
what specifically? Like, could you give me an example of someone at the workplace taking away your energy?
It's just a negative conversation. It doesn't mean it needs to be a rowdy conversation. It's not a harsh conversation. It's not like a fed up conversation. It's just that you can feel somebody sucking energy from you.
The person's energy, specifically.
Literally. And I think that I felt at a very young stage. And so to me, my lows would be about figuring out if somebody's sucking energy from me or am I letting my energy get sucked.
Got it.
And I'm not saying in a voodoo manner or somebody's sucking it out from me in that sense, but you can feel it.
How do you feel about this conversation?
I feel good about this conversation. Okay. Right now, I think we're on positive energy mode, so it's good.
It's all about the positivity.
Yeah.
I wanna ask you, sir. Right now, what's the best case scenario for your life? Do you have like an end goal? Are you building businesses towards that kind of end goal? And I'll tell you why I'm asking you this. For me, I really desperately want to try changing the world in some way eventually. And I know that money is one of those factors in life that definitely makes you more powerful. So while I am earning money through businesses, it's with that end goal of, wait, I want to be a change maker, possibly without entering the world of politics. So what's your end game? Like, why are you doing this?
Yeah. I think this change maker as a word is nice. It's a nice definition as a goal post and a flag post. But it's a process. So it's not a change maker in that. So I think today I feel fabulous about everything that I'm doing. I feel really blessed about what I'm doing, but it's choices that I've made. Okay. And I think the fact that I can make that many choices, and that's what I think the younger generation also needs to understand today, that if you're blessed enough and you can make choices, that's a massive plus. So at that stage, if you start getting into depression or if you're starting to feel mentally challenged on certain situations, just remember the choices that you can make, 99% of the people can't make the choices.
Right.
So that's a massive perquisite or add-on that you have. Yes. So to me, I think in the last 5 years, I've been blessed enough to make the choices. I want to do something in the not-for-profit space, but it's not like I started only 7 years back after I'd encashed or I had enough. We started doing that when I was 23. So what I'm doing with UpGrad, I just feel really good about it because it turns me on incredibly because I'm starting from scratch and building something really, and it's got impact.
You're a pilot again. You're not the control room guy.
Yeah. Well, I do get in the control room from time to time.
But you like taking that plane out sometimes.
Yeah. And then if you look at sports and what I'm doing there, it's phenomenal positive energy.
Yeah.
Because you're working with young people, you're working with teams, you're there to inspire, they inspire you cross, and then winning, losing, up, down, great fun, phenomenal fun.
I once heard you say in a podcast that you should be super non-emotional about all your businesses. Like run them, but don't get emotional about them. Honestly, I feel like my emotions are what drive me in life. Like I'm very emotional about my team, family culture, all that. So if you're not emotional about your business, what kind of relationship?
So are you mixing up emotion with passion?
Okay, I got my answer.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you should be extremely passionate about it, but you don't need to be emotional. And once you figure out that there's a huge difference between those two words, which there is, and I think you can get it from that point. Of course, you need to be extremely passionate. But the minute you get emotional, then you can't take the sensible decisions in life. Then everything is about, it's like when you're working with people in a thought, if they take it personally, it's an emotional decision. In a workplace, if one person is giving feedback to the other and he takes it personally, it's emotional. If he takes it in a positive manner, it's very different. Yeah.
What gets you super angry at the workplace or in life?
I think I suffer fools very badly. So that's
why is this person not fast enough?
Yeah, it could be. It could be about speed. It could be about clarity sometimes. I think communication is a very important tool in this new generation and just this place if you want to move fast. So then I don't think we communicate the level at which we could communicate, sometimes in a tight manner. So I think that sometimes can get me like get to the point kind of situation.
Right. So why are we seeing more mental health issues with this generation than with yours?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a question of expectations. It's a question of entitlement. It's those things that I think are driving a lot of people.
Okay.
And then they don't want to open up. And a lot of that younger generation feels they can solve them things on their own. They've built their own world around themselves. And if you don't have that feedback, then it's very, very difficult.
No, but like, do you think it's social media? Do you think so? Growing up in the world of social media is
It's like saying technology is changing. I think consumers are changing. So in the same way here, no, I don't think so. I mean, everyone had their own tools to be highly depressed 20 years back, 30 years back, 10 years back. There were enough tools. If you wanted excuses for why you're getting depressed, there could be, there were long wars where the whole world was at war. By that time, everyone should have been depressed for 10 years after that, where half your family was not there. So there have been cathartic situations in the past and people haven't got depressed. I think it's more to do with individuals and how they want to cope with that.
Right. Have you suffered from heartbreak at any point? And I'm not talking about breakups only. I'm talking about like just general heartbreak in life.
In my early days in my life, yeah. In my later days in my life, not really.
Later days began at the age of?
Yeah, I won't tell.
25.
No, 30.
Okay.
30. Yeah.
That's not too far. Okay, so in your 20s.
Yeah.
20s are all about like discovering yourself, discovering the world.
Yeah.
Getting a little slapped around.
Yeah.
What were your slaps back in the day?
If I was actually had more than one girlfriend at a time, then that would mean a big slap. But it was all very nice and transparent about it. But I think, heartbreaks happen. But I think at that stage, you feel that's the worst thing that happened to you, and then you move on. I think today again, when we talked about mental illness and depression, just that whole feedback. I think the seriousness with which the young people actually today feel that it's very personal again. Like if somebody's let you down, then you feel, oh God, and then there's something wrong with you. And then you internalize that, and then everything becomes a spiral.
They take themselves too seriously. Do you think that's also the case?
I guess if you're in a stage of mental this thing, you would have taken yourself a little too seriously.
Okay. And is your advice to just chill out a little bit?
Yeah, but it's very difficult. I've also seen it. I've seen it live, and one has tried that. It's almost to get them out of the bedroom and get them into the living room sometimes, or to have a conversation in a nice, relaxed manner. It's almost impossible. So it's scary. It is very scary.
Coming back to your marriage, sir. How did you find a co-founder that you could marry? Or how did you figure that your wife could be your co-founder? Because a lot of people, what they do is, I've heard people say this, and I'm not married yet, so I have no perspective. But I've heard people say that it's fantastic to have two people from different industries get married to each other because they can escape into each other.
Yeah, Zarina and I have actually worked together first. We did a lot of theater together. And then we got close.
Again, in terms of working with your wife, does that have its own challenges on a relationship level?
It has challenges, but I think we don't take our work home at most cases. When we worked in media together, we were working in different responsibilities altogether.
Right.
And today, when we're working together, it's more in the social space. So it's just there's so much passion. The agenda's less. It's not a competitive thing between two of us. We've come to do it because we're really deeply involved with what we want to do. And frankly, if we don't have arguments and difference of opinion, then how are we going to get the best out of each other?
Right, 100%. So it's a marriage built on growth, I'm assuming.
On growth?
Yes.
Yeah, I think all relationships have to grow.
Do you have to put effort into any relationship to make it grow?
I have to put a lot of effort into a lot of relationships other than hopefully with my wife and my daughter. Because I guess that's just for me. As I said, it takes a little bit of effort to get into a personal relationship with people.
Right. So tough question for you now. If you only had to choose between a life of business versus a life of family, what would you choose?
No, I don't think there'd be a choice like that. I wouldn't allow myself to be put in a position like that.
But
because I'll be damned if I do and damned if I won't do both. I mean, there's no question about that. It just comes together. And I don't. There are no such situations which are what ifs, which are never can be what ifs. So if there's a balance, that's what it is. But if it had to be one of the two, I don't see why I would need to pick either of them.
What's your last thought when you're going to sleep?
Meditate, actually. So actually, my last thought is my breathing.
No, but when you're lying down after the meditation.
Various things. Sometimes it could be just random thoughts. Sometimes I think it is to do with work and you're winding up. The most horrible thing is if you're watching something on television or on a digital platform. That's the worst thing you could possibly do. So now I've switched to actually reading for half an hour before and that 10 minutes of meditation, because actually that's your best sleep.
Right, 100%.
And I think sleep is important.
100%. I think sleep is the biggest
Yeah.
fuel of my life
Yeah,
as well.
yeah.
Also, in terms of what I read a lot of spiritual books now. Do you find yourself reading spirituality as well?
Not that much. I've got a lot of that impact both with Zarina and Tricia talking about that from time to
There's
time.
a lot of business lessons in spirituality. A lot.
Yes. Oh, yes, absolutely. And I think there's a lot of business lessons in war books. I read a lot of books
wow.
on war, for example, because that's strategy.
Right.
It's always smart strategy and it's always black and white.
Right. So 5 books that have had like the deepest impact on your life.
Yeah, I'm not good at recommending those. I'll have to give that a little bit of a thought. I can only talk about my recent books from whatever it is, but it's different books at different times that have differently turned me on.
Got it. And so, like, do you yourself use UpGrad for anything, like to learn anything more deeply?
Yes.
Like what?
Yes. I think, well, I'm involved in the entire process of what we're doing in terms of content at UpGrad, because I think at the core of learning and at the core of teaching and at the core of education is storytelling.
Right, 100%.
And I think that that's the most important part. So, and I think that's what I also bring to the table. So to that extent, yes, how we create, how we do what we do is an integral part of what I want to do.
What are jobs going to look like in 15 years? Because I know somewhere you've developed UpGrad with that thought bubble in your mind that we're preparing people for like a
That's
new
going to
India.
go through 3 different churns, in my opinion, in the first place. So I think people should be only concerned about what jobs are going to be there for the next 5 years, because that's going to determine, I think people used to make 5-year plans. Now they make 1-year plan and 2-year plans. And that's pretty much long term. I'm not saying 1 month and 2 months is there. So I think it's about every 4 to 5 years. Now, when we get to the theoretical part of it, of saying, the careers of tomorrow or artificial intelligence and machine learning, those are all the conventional ones that are also there. But I think the core of the jobs of tomorrow is going to require a lot of resilience and a lot of common sense with which you want to do that. Right. And that's why it goes back to your question you asked me earlier about an MBA degree. And I'm saying, yes, you need a little bit of that knowledge, but how you're going to put it into practice. So the jobs of tomorrow will require people to be good communicators.
Okay.
In some form or the other, good storytellers.
Okay.
Because that's how you're going to get the attention.
Right.
A lot of self-confidence in yourself. And then domain knowledge will come from time to time.
Okay.
And of course, there'll be the careers of tomorrow that you're looking at, which is, we know all what we're talking about here. How that will impact people over a period of time will be step by step.
So, but why wasn't it important to be a good communicator in 2004 compared to 2025?
Because the world has changed a lot. Because I think to be heard today, just focus, attention, and concentration. And again, going back to youngsters, I think the other part of the mental illness is this continued form of distraction.
Okay.
An attention span, right? So if you ask me today, what's our distraction level versus 15 years back? A big difference, right? So then I need to be a communicator to hold your attention, because after 1 minute of a conversation, if I'm giving a talk for half an hour, I refuse to give a talk for half an hour anymore. I used to give a talk a long time back, but today I'd say I'm going to talk for 5 minutes and then I'm going to do Q&A, because otherwise everyone's suddenly going to have their phones, because whatever and however deep I want to say something, attention focus now is just not there.
Have you used this power of communication skills to forward your career? You yourself?
Yes. So I've used it. I've leveraged it. I think it's important. I've updated it. I need to improve on it. That's what I keep doing.
What are your top 3 tips when it comes to communication skills?
I think keep it simple.
Clarity.
Yeah. Really keep it simple. Now, clarity is your own internal thinking, but really keep it simple. Eye contact is another very important part of it, because otherwise, and that's why to me that distraction comes in, because you make an eye contact, because when you're communicating, half of it is body language. It's not what you say, it's how you say it. So much is about how you say it.
Do you pick up on other people's body language as well?
Yeah, but not in any, you shouldn't be aware of it. It just comes with the vocabulary. That's how it should come.
The vibe, as millennials call it.
Yeah, the vibe. Sure. Yeah.
And your third tip?
So keep it simple. I'd say eye contact. I think charm may be the third one that I would add to that.
Right?
Really.
Could you break down charm a little more?
Yeah, just charm. Make it unassuming. Make people feel relaxed around you, so that they really feel this is a nice conversation that's going to be had. There's nothing that formal about it. There's charm. I mean, various people could be very boring, but they could be also very charming, and then that's it. So when you say turn on your charm, doesn't mean you have to do this, right? It's
Yeah, you just got to
be
watch
charming.
BeerBiceps
Just be
videos.
charming, yeah.
That's what we teach. We teach people charm.
yeah, yeah. So voice modulation can bring about charm, right?
You caught me, sir.
Yeah.
So that's one aspect of what I wanted to ask you. But again, you mentioned artificial intelligence. You mentioned machine learning and things like that. Are these things really going to steal people's jobs, especially in
I think
India?
if they'll create jobs, then they'll steal jobs, obviously. Now, every single technological update did that. I think the key challenge for most people today is how they're going to keep up with it.
Right.
And I think in India, our main challenge has been that we've been an arbitrage economy, right? What does that mean? I mean, today, the middle class really got formed with IT. And the IT industry, which I think today is changing. For the younger generation, they can't relate to that.
What's the new IT industry?
So I'm saying that's how we created the middle class. Now today, India needs to step out of this cost leverage point of view. I mean, China's done that a lot. India needs to step out of this cost leverage arbitrage point of view.
You got to break that down a lot more.
I've got to simplify that. So I'm saying cost leverage meaning today we're body shopping as a country, right? I mean, we're a country where people come to us, and if you can do something at a cheaper price.
Got it.
That has to stop, which means that we need to create originality. We need to be creators and not just job handlers.
Right.
And I think that's the good part that I'm excited about the younger generation, because they're not in that mode necessarily to go out and just execute.
Yeah, I think the younger generation's a lot more rebellious than the previous
Yep.
generation.
And that'll lead to creativity. That'll lead to innovation. That'll lead to doing something new in a new manner. That'll need to say no to a lot of things, not take, and I think that's the kind of road we need to all go on.
Is there a serious possibility of India becoming one of the world's richest nations by the year 2040?
Look, I think we have complex situations and we should set good goals. And the fact is that 1.3 billion, if we can get our consumption up, yes. But we've got lots of challenges.
What do you mean get our consumption up?
No, meaning if everyone gets more money in their pocket and if they consume, just 1.3 billion people consuming even fraction more can get us technically to being a good economy. But I think we've got many problems because the haves and the have-nots is huge in this country. And I know that because we work in rural India a lot. And that's 600 million people and more.
Yeah. So you're surrounded by business leaders, people who have, again, become accomplished in life. So what can these change makers do in order to make that 2040 dream a possibility right now? How can you set up India for the future right now?
I think Inspire is one of them. The reason I'm sitting here having this conversation with you is I'm happy to be in whatever small way I can, see whether I can inspire or talk about a story or talk about an anecdote or talk about something which makes you feel human and says, "Arey yaar, if he could do it, so can I." So I think Inspire is a very, very important one. I think we need leaders and leading from the front for what we want to do. And I think this whole context of even when you're giving back and understanding the ecosystem around you, what is the impact? Because I think in a country like India, impact is important. So what you're doing in whichever field you're doing it in, what's the impact you're making?
Got it.
Okay, you're changing some people's lives in a different manner. Yes, fashion may not be as impactful as we would look at it, but if that brings about a level of confidence in people, hurrah, you're doing something.
Right. Thank you. I'm getting validation from Ronnie Screwvala. So CC, do you feel that inspiration is the motivation for your career even now? Is that what gets you out of bed?
I think it's important. Yeah, a lot of things get me out of bed, but inspiration is one of them. But inspiration is one of them.
Are there days where you're like, don't want to work today?
No.
Okay. Did that happen earlier?
No. As I said, no. I think unless it was a flu, I would say no.
Okay. So you're always charged.
I wouldn't say that in a sweeping statement, but I've never had a problem jumping out of bed.
And have you ever had burnouts in your life?
Yeah, I'd say, but not burnouts, but burns.
Burn downs.
Burn downs maybe, but
Like
not
knockdown
burnouts.
versus knockout.
Yeah.
So have you had knockdowns?
Yeah, but I think I'm also someone who recharges quite well. I recharge quite well.
What do you do?
but sleep, frankly, is one of them, to be honest. And I don't take it to sleep. I think that's very fortunate that I don't. I like taking good short breaks, which actually recharge you in many ways.
Right.
And if there's something that's really bothering me, then I'd rather drop it and figure out how I want to come back to it after 2-3 days.
Right.
And do whatever I need to do.
I asked your protege, Sid Roy Kapoor, this question. I'm going to ask you the same question. Have there been moments in your career where, in private, behind closed doors, have you ever broken down as a guy? Have you cried about something related to your career?
To your career? Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. I mean, and that's because sometimes when you're an entrepreneur, especially a first generation entrepreneur, I think there are a lot of moments that can pull you down, but you need to keep your shoulders up. Now that has to have a reaction outside of when you're at some stage you need to drop those shoulders in a moment of being so stoic, so bravado out in front of people, and then you feel, wow. And then you break down.
It's the pressure of leadership.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
I know what you mean, sir. So I think I'm at that stage right now. I'm 27. I'm going to turn 27 this year. It's a weird hack, but this is my life hack. I watch a lot of Nike advertisements like to pull me back up. It's very motivational.
Nike ads pull you back up.
Oh, I have like a whole collection.
So
on my
Nike
phone.
ads, they give you energy like
Yeah,
that.
100%. And there'll be moments where I'll be watching that ad and it'll pull out the tears from me. I'm like, I'm going to be a LeBron James. So I want to talk about sports because sports is actually a huge factor of motivation in my life as well. A lot of basketball, a lot of cricket, bit of football. And I'm sure for you, kabaddi. But have you had these sportsmen who've pulled you out of dark emotional places? Like stories of them or stories from sport?
No, they've been very fun and liberating. I don't think they've taken me out of a dark place because I've not got into those dark spaces, but I've got into it because I enjoy it. Listen, if somebody asks me why are you in sports, which of these sports did you play back in school or college, I'd say none. Literally none of them. So to that extent, why have I done that? I think that's the beauty of the transition of what you want to do, right? I mean, you've got to be counterintuitive to many things you do. Today, I think that's quite important.
Right.
And I see that a lot with the younger generation also, where it's like, okay, this is what I want to do and that's it. Follow what you want to do.
When you scan your entire career, could you have done something to make everything grow faster?
I'm just not a believer in hindsight.
Okay.
I just don't think I think it's a waste of time because if you were to say, but 5 years back, if I could have done this, yeah, but there are so many other things at that moment that would have changed around you that I think it's theoretical. It's completely theoretical.
What does a 60-year-old Ronnie Screwvala have that a 40-year-old Ronnie Screwvala didn't?
I'll know when I turn 60. I'm right now 40.
I like that. Okay, so my question to you is, what does a 40-year-old Ronnie Screwvala have?
Think when I'll get to be 60, I'll be hoping to be 40.
Beautiful. But what has the last 10 years of your business career given you in terms of weapons, other than money?
Choices. I think in the last 10 years, I've been liberated enough to feel I can do things. I think it's given me is the power of no, being able to say no to things, which is quite important in life.
Okay.
And I think I've had that experience to be able to now say no to more things than not. Right. And that makes a big difference.
Thank you for saying yes to this interview. Coming back to the future of the education system in India, I think our generation was the first generation that had the platform of social media. A lot of my content also has been centered around the Indian education system because while I was in engineering college, and I entered engineering college because I enjoyed physics. When I read about physics, I'm like, wow, this information is entering into my head directly. I want to be able to design robots and planes. And I entered engineering with that intention. Once I got into engineering college, they showed me 10 circuits. They told me you're going to be asked one of these 10 in the exam paper. Better learn how to draw these. No explanation of the circuit, nothing. And you have to just ratta maro the circuit, throw it out on your paper. So it becomes very frustrating for Indian kids. First generation who had social media, once I got big on social media, I'm like, okay, I'm going to tell this story, on my channel.
Correct.
What is the future of the Indian education system? Will it be
needs
changing?
to change a lot. And I think that's what we're focused on at UpGrad. And that doesn't mean everything is bad. But I think it's not broken, but it needs to get to the next level. And that's because the expectations of what you need to do in your life are so different that what you're learning and getting educated for is no real connection. And those fundamentals and foundations are too fundamental and too foundation oriented from that point of view. And I remember when I walked into I think I was a very focused student in school.
Right.
And then the first 15 days I walked into college and I kind of lost interest because I suddenly saw a drop in the level of teaching and its relevance to what I wanted to do in life. And I walked in and I think I was in a management class in commerce. And the first professor thought he was cracking a joke and he says, "What is management?" And he says, "What is management? Management." And T is the tea break. And he laughed at his own joke. Nobody laughed at it. And that was the day I felt, well, maybe I'll have to figure out how to buy my attendance in college because I'm not coming to too many more of these lectures here, especially if I want to do something on my own. So if I take that as the best example today, if you're looking at education, firstly, it's a very highfalutin word because it sounds like it's a calendar event. It sounds like you have to go through it in school, then there's college, and then it's over. But actually, it's never over.
Yeah.
And I think that's pretty much what excites me about what we're doing at UpGrad, that it's really lifelong. And I don't mean it in any hyperbole. It's just that it is a process. And therefore, it's not an event anymore. It's about an ongoing process.
Do you sometimes look at young kids of today and you're like, okay, these kids are kind of ahead of my generation already?
I think they are.
Faster?
Just smarter, faster, aware, opinionated, in a good manner, mostly in a good manner. And even if it's opinionated in bad manner, it's good because the level of confidence when you're opinionated is big.
Right.
So yeah, absolutely. I'd love to live in this generation.
You're working with a lot of young people.
Yeah.
So I'm sure you have like some superstars in your office, like some young superstars.
Yeah.
How do you bracket them as superstars in your own mind? How do you go like, okay, this guy, I think he's going to do something with his life. What's that?
Basically, it's attitude.
Okay.
I think the first thing is attitude. If you can see that attitude, then you know where it's going to go.
What is it? What is
Just
the
whatever that attitude is. If it's the attitude of I'm going to get it done, come what may, or it's a very confident attitude, or it's just that level of clarity, but it's attitude.
Jugaad attitude?
No. Jugaad is not a good thing as far as I'm concerned because Jugaad in India means shortcuts.
Got it.
And most people look at Jugaad as not like this frugal innovation. They look at it as shortcuts, like Jugaad kar diya. And that's actually not good. So I think we misuse this word Jugaad a lot when it comes to the Indian connotation. But I think it's attitude.
People who execute on their thoughts.
Yeah.
Is that like something?
It would be, but execution is a verb. Attitude is a noun in that sense, if you know what I'm saying. So I still think if you've got that attitude, you can do a lot in life.
And when you spot a superstar with attitude, what's your advice to him?
I just take them under my arm and then I say, we're going to work together. We're going to do things from that point of view. Right. Actually, they're not even looking for advice. I think if I had to go back in my life, there were not that many moments in which my best mentoring came from people giving me advice. I think the best inputs I got when people ask me very hard questions. So if I'm really looking at somebody who's got a good attitude, I think it's about asking him the right hard questions or her the right hard questions.
So like you have an idea of what my team and myself, like what we do, how we build this. I want to ask you for a bit of advice for us, like mentor us live on the podcast.
All right.
And honestly, a lot of the mentoring we've gotten till now, I won't say a lot, but a few people have always told us that y'all are doing too many things. But honestly, we believe that we're going at the correct pace with all those many things and we have the right people in place. So one, would you say the same thing? And if not, then what would your advice be?
Yeah, if I had to do, as much as I've said that I'm not good at hindsight, but if I had to do something a little bit differently, the one thing I would do is focus more. That is for sure. So that kind of half answers your question. I right now still do multitasking, but I've chosen to do multitasking because I'm not doing any one thing because I've got phenomenal teams and colleagues around me where I'm part of the process and not the only one from that point of view.
Right.
So the simple answer is yes, if you can figure out what that focus is, you should actually, it'll get more valuable as you go forward.
Okay.
But there's a timing for it, in my opinion. And I think sometimes you need to be in things so that you figure out what's the outbreak.
Right.
So just to focus on one single situation may not be the best thing. In a manner, whatever you're doing is all under one roof in terms of the activities, just diverse activities of the same one. As long as you understand that these are diverse activities, but the core is the same, you'll get somewhere. But if you look at each of these and then you start, and I heard you earlier on when we were talking in private saying, and then I formed this company and I formed that company, I would say for those things you need to watch out for. Keep it under an umbrella and then look at them as diverse activities that come to the similar goal. But I would not undermine focus today. for real success.
Yeah, because I think today more than ever we have more options than any other generation, any other age. But any other piece of advice, sir? Like I just while I have access to you, I really wanna just really pick your brains on any.
The only advice I would give you is actually it's very difficult for anybody to give you advice. So don't stand around and start taking it because then it'll start playing on your mind.
Got it.
So, as I said, to me, the best advice is somebody can ask you strong questions. I wouldn't tell you whether you're right or wrong. I'll ask you, so what is it that you want to do? And I'll ask you 5 more questions.
Got it.
And then you might feel, what the hell? Now I asked Ronnie a question and he asked me 5 more questions. Yeah. But day after tomorrow, those 5 questions will stick around in your mind and you'll say, well, I didn't quite answer that right. Actually, what I meant to say was this. And then you got your answer.
People who are dealing with failure right now, what's your biggest piece of advice? It can be, okay, let's talk specifically about career failures. Like someone's tried to launch a business, completely bombed.
And so?
What is your next piece of advice?
No, but so what? I mean, it is going to, definitely things are going to bomb. What's the problem? You're not going to fail once. You're not going to fail times. You're going to fail 100 times.
Do you fail even today?
Of course. I mean, literally, I mean, I'm saying, of course you would. Now, it depends on what you call failure. If you and I think when I wrote my book, if you call failure a full stop, then you're dead. If you look at failure as a comma, you're fine.
Move on to the next one.
With learning, it may be therapeutic, it may be whatever it needs to be, but it's not the end of the world. And people ask me, so what's your biggest failure? I'm saying it's yet to come.
100%. And so in the 2020s, what do you think are possible business opportunities for people? As in like how I'd probably say in the 2010s, it was social media related business. I capitalized on it because I saw that, okay, Facebook's coming out. So there will obviously be a requirement of influencers. 2020s, what's it going to be?
No, I mean, I think if you look at India versus some of the global markets, and I think Asia is a separate one, I think we're so underwhelmed when it comes to health and wellness. And this whole evolution of people. And it's, and you can be young and at 18, people are thinking of it in a very different manner. So I just think the whole element of health, wellness is a massive sector. Disrupting the whole edtech sector, which we're doing in education, because it's no longer education, right? So that's like a massive opportunity from that.
Right.
Those, I think, are your core when you're looking at some of the incredible opportunities. And then I think for a country like India, the impact elements of what we do in some of the business opportunities are huge. Because I think most people think it's about social media, but I'm saying there are 40 people who've done phenomenal thing in waste. In waste management. You haven't heard their stories because it's just, I mean, it doesn't sound sexy. And nobody funded it. And so it didn't get to the front page. But incredible stories, good hardships, good struggle, lots of failure, and actually doing phenomenal business.
Right. Do you have any business tips right now for those people who are going to start their businesses in the 20s? Anything they need to keep in mind that's specific to this decade?
No, I think to all decades, if you figure out why, you need to be very clear about why you're doing what you're doing. That's a very important part.
Purpose.
Yeah. I think you need to have that very clear, I have no choice and positive attitude. If you're thinking of saying, I'll give this 1 year and see what happens, don't. Because the chances are it won't happen in the year. You can't time it and then you'll get screwed. So don't do that. Right. So don't put some of those preconditions, whatever that may be. You want to start, you want to be a professional, you want to be a lawyer, or you want to start your business, or you want to take a job, whichever one it may be. Just be clear on those.
So with UpGrad specifically, I heard you say that this is your biggest project till date. That as in this can scale up the most. What is like your, maximum potential scenario for UpGrad? Like, do you want to be able to make sure that every kid in India, every human in India is...
No, I think I did say very clearly, I think India is capable of being the teaching capital of the world.
Okay.
I think technology-wise, enough of us being the cost arbitrage guys where people come to us for being the low-cost model. We can innovate. And I think in this fields of health and education, the whole world is at par. It's not like any nation is 5 years ahead, 15 years ahead, and 20 years ahead, which it is in many other aspects. And I think that's why it's a phenomenal opportunity.
You're, mimicking the idea of Nalanda and Takshashila, the ancient universities where people would flock to India.
Yeah.
But why?
But, we work in rural India. We work with 1,200 schools and 800 Anganwadis. And there in our infrastructure with the schools, I think the best learning they've had is when they come out, sit under a tree in a circle.
Right.
And I think that is what the Indian philosophy was on education. Then the British came here and screwed it up, and now we need to go back to it.
Yeah, 100%. A big reason I went into regional content is because I want to talk to the rural population.
Yeah.
Do you feel that there's going to be a wave of entrepreneurs who are going to come out of rural India now?
See, look, at Swades, we create about 100 to 1,000 entrepreneurs every year.
Okay.
In cashew, in goatery, in poultry, and many aspects. The challenge we find there is about their level of confidence and their level of ambition.
Wow.
Because I think in rural India, people haven't really figured out what it is to have money in your pocket and what it can do for you. Because for 70 years, if you only lived on grants, then it's very difficult for you to understand what life can be, which is very different.
Right.
So I think at the core of what we do there is to also work on aspiration levels and ambition levels of people.
So again, the key is inspire them to like pick up on
aware, inspire.
Oh, beautiful. Sir, and just the last question of this podcast. What are your 3 greatest learnings of life that have had the deepest impact on you? It doesn't have to be business. It can just be about life in general.
So I have a strong philosophy that all glory is fleeting. And it's paid a rich dividend for me. And I started very early in my life.
Don't get attached to your victories.
And people actually accuse me, therefore, of not celebrating small successes and big successes and move on. Because I just feel, okay, even if something was fantastic that day, move on, because the next day could be something completely different. It's good and bad. For the people who work around me, it's not the best thing. But where I come, it charges me up. So I think that is one thing that's there. The second one is this whole context of not having a choice. I think that's driven me through a lot of my failures, where if I go on anything else and I say, well, what choice do I have? If I have a plan B, then it becomes a problem. So I think that's pretty much what's also driven me, that I don't have a choice.
Plan A.
Yeah, I don't have a choice. So let's get on with it. Otherwise, you start looking for an exit door very easily. So that, I think, has also driven me.
And the third learning?
Nothing that comes off, but I think these two hold me in good stead.
I have like one last question for you. I recently interviewed someone called Mr. Jimmy Mistry from Della, and he spoke a lot about SQ, which is your spiritual quotient. So there's IQ, your intelligence quotient, your emotional quotient, EQ, and SQ, which is spiritual quotient. And that encapsulates everything from, have you heard this quote from the Bible called Philippians 4:13? No. So it says that I can do all things through him who gives me strength, where anything that you accomplish is actually the universe working through you.
Yep.
Because all this UpGrad was meant to happen.
Yeah.
Swades was meant to happen.
Yeah.
You were just a medium.
Yeah.
So are you a believer in that fact as well?
Absolutely. I think if there's one word in my vocabulary today, it's serendipity.
Can you explain that for the
viewers?
viewers?
Serendipity means, a lot of people think it's being in the right place at the right time, but there's no such thing like that.
Destiny?
Because you need to work at it. Destiny sounds like you're going to sit and something's going to hit you from above. It doesn't work that way. For you to be in the right place at the right time means you have to work very hard to be in multiple places at multiple times for that 1 or 2 opportunities where you'll be in the right place at the right time. So I think everything that's happened for me in the last 7-8 years has been completely serendipitous.
Do you think about God?
Yeah, I believe in God and I think of that. And
Did you always believe in God?
Always. Okay. Good Parsis, we always believe in it.
Why are there so many atheists in the modern young generation?
I don't have an answer as to why. I think maybe sometimes it comes from personal experience. Sometimes it flows in from your beliefs. I think today people feel they're a lot more in control of themselves, where actually they're not. And that gives you the power to believe that actually that's what it is. And I think people change. People grow up with asthma, and then as you grow up, you lose asthma. So sometimes you can change.
What role has God played in your career?
Being around. Being around.
Got it. Like you point up when you score a century.
No, I haven't pointed up. I'm not sure whether up, down, whatever else, but just been around.
Got it.
It could be the flick of an eye in my mind. It could be a thought. It could be pulling my ear, whatever.
I'm going to take this as your third lesson of life. And thank you for
Thank
this
you.
podcast.
That was good fun.
I genuinely hope you
very much.
enjoyed it.
Yeah, lovely.
Of course, guys, I'll be linking all of UpGrad's links down below. I think, Ronnie, so you're going to say something?
No, that's good. And just keep learning. I think what I'm looking at and I'm excited about here is making a change and a difference. My good part today, I can say, my daughter's 31. And she finished her education, and then one fine day decided whatever she had learned and studied she didn't want to do, and started a not-for-profit. And I'm so excited and proud about it, because I think today I'm finding that even with her friend circles or whatever else, people are a lot more aware and they're just more rounded. So if you can stay rounded, fantastic.
Beautiful. Thank
Lovely.
you.
Thank you very
That
much.
was your signing off note. I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast.
Thank you and bye.